Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling that really common question. You work hard, the paycheck comes in, but somehow, where does it all just vanish?
Right. It feels like that sometimes.
And more importantly, how do we actually, hold on to some of it, build a little security? We've got this really practical guide here, Mastering Your Finances, a practical guide to saving money. And our mission in this deep dive is basically to pull out the truly actionable strategies, things you can actually do to save money tailored for life here in the US.
Yeah, think of it as cutting through the noise.
Exactly. It's not about drowning you in complicated finance jargon. It's about finding those key nuggets to help you feel more in control of your money.
Right. We're sort of sifting through this guide to find the core principles of things that can genuinely make a difference in your saving habits. Doesn't matter what your income is right now or, how tangled your finances might feel.
Okay, so the guide kicks things off with something that, well, it might seem basic, but it's so important. You really can't figure out how to save more until you know where your money is actually going. It puts a huge emphasis on understanding your current financial landscape first.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating how many of us kind of operate on financial autopilot. We're guessing, not really knowing. So the guide rightly says, track everything, and not just your main salary or wages.
Right. Any side gigs, freelance income.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, every single outflow.
Right.
Rent, groceries, sure. But also
that coffee you grab every morning, the subscriptions you forgot about.
Precisely. Those little things. And the guide even points to tools, right? Apps like Mint or YNAB.
Yeah, it mentions those to help automate things, which, okay, might feel like a bit of a chore at first. But it's like you wouldn't plan a picnic without checking the weather, right? You need that data.
It's the foundation. This tracking, it gives you clarity, often reveals surprising spending patterns.
Yeah, I bet. Those aha moments where you see where the leaks are.
Exactly. And that points you towards where you can maybe start saving, often without, drastically changing everything overnight.
Okay, so tracking is step one. Get that clear picture. Once you have that snapshot, what's the next key step the guide points to for actually building savings?
Well, it moves right into setting clear financial goals.
The why.
Exactly, the why. Without specific goals, saving just feels kind of vague, doesn't it?
Yeah, like something you should do, but it's easy to put off.
Right. So the guide stresses making goals specific, maybe even putting a rough timeline on them. Think about that emergency fund.
For saving for a vacation, paying off a credit card.
Or something bigger, longer term, like a down payment. Having that target gives saving a purpose.
That makes total sense. Just saying, I want to save more is fuzzy. But saying, okay, I want to save $1,000 in the next 3 months for emergencies, that's concrete.
You can actually track your progress towards that.
And the guide also mentions breaking them down, right? Short term, medium, long term.
Yeah, that categorization helps. A short-term goal, like that first $500 or $1,000 for an emergency fund, gives you a quick win, builds momentum.
And that sense of security, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Whereas a long-term goal, like retirement, well, that requires consistent effort over years, a different mindset.
Okay, got it. So we're tracking, we have goals. Now, the budget. This is the part that sometimes feels, restrictive.
It can feel that way, but the guide frames it as the cornerstone of managing your money, and it introduces the 50-30-20 rule.
Right. Can you give us a quick rundown on that?
Sure. It's basically a simple guideline for allocating your after-tax income.
Yeah.
Roughly 50% goes towards your needs essential stuff like housing, utilities, basic groceries, getting to work.
Okay, needs. 50%.
Then about 30% is for wants. Things like dining out, hobbies, entertainment, streaming services.
Yeah.
The non-essentials.
Wants 30%. Got it.
And the final 20% is ideally directed towards savings and paying off debt.
So needs, wants, savings at 50-30-20. But the guide is clear. These aren't like ironclad rules, are they?
Oh, absolutely not. It emphasizes that. Someone living somewhere really expensive might find their needs eat up way more than 50%.
Right. So you got to adjust.
You have to tailor it. The key principle, though, is that conscious allocation. Making sure saving and debt pay down are planned parts of your budget, not just leftovers.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, one of the really practical tips I liked in the guide was automating savings. Why is that so effective?
Automation. It's powerful because it removes the decision fatigue. You set up an automatic transfer from your checking to your savings every payday. It's that classic pay yourself first idea.
Right. You treat it like any other bill.
Exactly. But it's a bill you're paying to your future self. Saving becomes automatic, routine.
And the guide points out, even if it's just a small amount automatically transferred each time,
It adds up, especially over the long run. Compounding helps too, even with small amounts.
plus, if the money moves automatically, you're less likely to just spend it because it's sitting there in your checking account.
Precisely. Out of sight, out of mind. Well, sort of. It reduces that temptation.
Okay, another area the guide covers, and this one, I think a lot of people wrestle with this, cutting unnecessary expenses.
Yeah, this is where that tracking data really comes in handy.
How so?
Well, you look back at where your money went and you start asking, am I really getting value from this? The guide highlights things like unused subscriptions.
Oh, yeah. The gym you never go to, the streaming service you forgot you had.
Exactly. Or even daily habits, like that daily fancy coffee. The guide isn't saying never have coffee.
Right, but maybe make it at home most days.
Maybe. It's about identifying those small recurring costs that really drain your savings potential over time.
And the key mindset shift here, according to the guide, is that it's not about feeling deprived.
No, not at all. It's about conscious spending. Reallocating your money from things that don't matter much to you towards things that do align with your goals.
This kind of flows into the next point, embracing frugality. The guide makes a point of saying frugality isn't the same as being cheap. What's the difference there?
That's a great distinction. Frugality, the way the guide presents it, is about resourcefulness. Making smart choices, getting good value,
Okay, so examples.
looking for discounts, maybe using coupons or waiting for sales for bigger purchases, thinking about generic brands for certain things where quality isn't really different.
Like cleaning supplies or basic pantry staples?
Yeah, potentially. Or checking out thrift stores. Using cashback apps or rewards cards smartly.
So it's being intentional, clever with your money, not just hoarding it.
Exactly. And the guide even throws in things like energy-saving habits at home, turning off lights, using a programmable thermostat. Those lower your bills. That's a form of frugality too.
Right, saving money on utilities counts. Okay, let's shift to something foundational, the emergency fund. The guide really hammers this point home.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
It's absolutely critical. Life throws curveballs, right?
Definitely. Unexpected medical bill, car repair, maybe even losing a job.
Exactly. An emergency fund is your financial buffer. It stops those unexpected things from completely derailing your finances or forcing you into high-interest debt just to cope.
And the usual recommendation is aiming for, 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses?
That's the standard target, yeah.
Yeah,
Which can sound daunting, absolutely.
a huge number for some people.
Right. But the guide wisely says, start small. Even getting $500 or $1,000 set aside makes a huge difference. It's a start. Provides real peace of mind.
It breaks down that big goal, makes it feel achievable.
Step by step. And importantly, keep that fund separate. Easily accessible, but not too easy, not in your everyday checking account. Needs to be there for actual emergencies.
Good point. Okay, so emergency fund is getting built. Then the guide turns to tackling debt, especially high interest debt.
Yeah, because that kind of debt actively works against your saving efforts. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it.
All that interest just draining your resources.
Exactly. Money that could be going towards your savings, towards your future, is just servicing the debt. So the guide strongly advises prioritizing paying down that high-interest stuff quickly.
And it mentions two main strategies, right? Debt snowball and debt avalanche.
Correct. Can be useful to know the difference.
So snowball is?
Snowball. You list your debts, smallest balance to largest, ignore the interest rates for a moment, and attack the smallest one first while making minimum payments on the others. Once it's gone, you take that payment amount and add it to the minimum on the next smallest debt.
Okay, so you get quick wins, builds motivation.
That's the psychological advantage, yes. Then there's the avalanche.
Which focuses on interest rates.
Right. List debts by highest interest rate down to lowest. You attack the highest interest debt first, making minimums elsewhere. Once that's paid off, you apply its payment to the next highest interest debt.
And mathematically, that saves you more money on interest over time.
Generally, yes. The guide suggests picking the method that works best for you, the one you'll stick with.
It also mentions looking into things like debt consolidation or even calling creditors to negotiate lower rates.
Definitely worth exploring those options if you're carrying a lot of high-interest debt. Anything to reduce that interest burden frees up cash flow for saving and investing.
Which brings us nicely to investing. The guide sees this as the next step. Once savings are healthier and debt is under control, growing your wealth long term.
Exactly. Saving is for security and shorter-term goals. Investing is really crucial for building wealth over the long haul, especially for big things like retirement.
And the guide points straight towards employer plans, like 401k.
Absolutely, especially if there's an employer match. That's key.
Yeah, that's often called free money for a reason. If your employer matches your contributions up to a certain point, you should really try to contribute enough to get the full match.
It's one of the best returns you can get, guaranteed. The guide also mentions IRAs, individual retirement accounts.
Right, another tax-advantaged way to save for retirement.
And it suggests looking into diversified, low-cost options like index funds or ETFs, exchange-traded funds.
Good way to spread risk without having to pick individual stocks.
Precisely. But, and this is important, the guide reminds us that investing does involve risk.
No guarantees there.
So it stresses doing your research, understanding what you're investing in, or maybe consulting a qualified financial advisor, especially if you're unsure. Make decisions that fit your own situation and how much risk you're comfortable with.
Very sensible advice. Okay, another smart angle the guide covers is leveraging tax advantages. This can really boost your savings.
Oh, hugely. Using tax-advantaged accounts means your money works harder. The guide mentions HSA's health savings accounts.
Right, if you have a high-deductible health plan.
Yeah, and FSA's flexible spending accounts. Both let you use pre-tax dollars for healthcare costs. That lowers your taxable income.
And contributions to traditional 401ks or traditional IRAs can also lower your taxable income now, right?
Correct. You get the tax break up front, though you'll pay taxes on withdrawals in retirement. Roth versions work the other way, contribute after-tax money, but qualified withdrawals in retirement are tax-free.
So understanding these options is key. The guide also encourages folks to just be aware of tax credits and deductions they might be eligible for.
Yeah, don't leave money on the table. Being tax smart is a big part of maximizing your financial potential.
Okay, finally, the guide wraps up by emphasizing that this isn't a set it and forget it thing forever. It stresses continuous financial education.
Absolutely vital. The financial world changes. Tax laws get updated, new investment products appear, the economy shifts.
So you need to keep learning.
You do. Staying informed, reading reliable personal finance books or websites, listening to well-informed sources, maybe attending workshops, it empowers you.
Lets you make better decisions and adapt as things change.
Exactly. It's not static. It requires ongoing attention, a bit of learning, being willing to adjust your plan as your life circumstances change too.
The more you know, the more confident you feel, right?
Definitely. More knowledge equals more control over your financial destiny.
Okay, so pulling it all together from this deep dive into mastering your finances. The big message seems to be that saving effectively isn't just about your income level.
Not at all. It's much more about awareness, knowing where your money goes.
Setting those meaningful goals we talked about.
Creating a budget that actually works for you, that's realistic and flexible.
And then consistently making informed choices.
Yeah.
Automating where you can, cutting back mindfully, being resourceful.
It's a mix of discipline, yes, but also knowledge and, crucially, adaptability. Life changes, your plan might need to tweak too.
And remembering it's a journey, right? Not an overnight fix.
So important. Building that solid financial foundation takes time. Small, consistent steps guided by these kinds of principles. That's what leads to real lasting results.
That's a really powerful takeaway. Okay, so for you listening right now, here's a final thought to mull over. What is just one small, doable step you can take today? Like right after you finish listening. Maybe it's finally downloading one of those budgeting apps the guide mentioned. Or maybe it's setting up that first tiny automatic transfer, even just $10 or $20 into a savings account. Just one thing.
Yeah, just start somewhere.
Think about how that single action, that initial step, no matter how small it feels right now, could be the start of something bigger. How it can compound over time, building towards greater financial security and, ultimately a bit more freedom in your life. Thanks for diving deep with us.